about the article by this guy named David Corn. He writes for The Nation magazine, one of the most left-wing magazines. He says Bill O'Reilly has a Brian Williams problem himself, and that 30 years ago, O'Reilly said that he was in the war zone when he really wasn't in a war zone. Really? Anyway, Bill O'Reilly was not amused. Here's what he said.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. More proof the American media is corrupt. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. This man, 56-year-old David Corn, who works for the far-left magazine Mother Jones, smeared me, your humble correspondent, yesterday, saying I fabricated some war reporting. Mother Jones, which is low circulation, considered by many the bottom rung of journalism in America. However, in this internet age, the defamation they put forth gets exposure. And so I have to deal with this garbage tonight. I'm sorry. Basically, David Corn, a liar, says I exaggerated situations in the Falklands War and the Salvadoran War. Here's the truth. Everything I've said about my reportorial career, everything, is true. 33 years ago in June, Argentina surrendered to Great Britain, ending the Falklands War. I was covering the conflict from Argentina and Uruguay for CBS News. After learning of the surrender, angry mobs in Buenos Aires stormed the presidential palace at Casa Rosada, trying to overthrow the government of General Leopoldo Galtieri.
This is Bill O'Reilly defending himself against accusations that he made stuff up. David Corn, who writes for Mother Jones, has also written for Nation, accused Bill O'Reilly of making up war stories, and this is O'Reilly's defense.
I was there in the street with my camera crews. The violence was horrific, as Argentine soldiers fired into the crowd, who were responding with violent acts of their own. My video of the combat led to CBS Evening News with Dan Rather that evening. Later on, I filed a report that ran nationwide. That's what happened. I never said I was on the Falkland Islands, as Corn purports. I said I covered the Falklands War, which I did. Now, in what I consider to be a miracle, I found this CBS internal memo from 33 years ago praising my coverage that day. Cable was sent to the CBS bureau chief in Buenos Aires by the news desk here in New York City. Quote, Doyle, O'Reilly didn't have the time last night, but would like to say many thanks for the riot piece last night. WCBS-TV and WCAU-TV both took the entire piece instead of stripping it for pics. They called to say thanks for a fine piece. Thanks again. Your piece made the late feed a winner last night, unquote. Want more? Here it is. Shortly after my crew and I escaped grave danger on the streets of Buenos Aires, I wrote to CBS News boss Ed Joyce, praising the crew's bravery. I have the letter. Quote, the crews were great. The riot had been very bad. We were gassed, shot at, and I had the best vantage point in which to report the story. So we have rock-solid proof that David Corn smeared me, and some websites that picked up his defamation did as well. Now, I had to spend hours last night on the phone with various reporters and crawling around my basement covered with dust trying to find documents from 33 years ago. Again,
what's amusing about this is that there was something called Journalist. It was a listserv put together by a guy named Ezra Klein, who at the time was with the Washington Post. And it was several hundred left-wing journalists. And they all were interacting with each other, I guess kind of like a loose association of like-minded people. And this is during the time the Reverend Jeremiah Wright matter threatened to torpedo now President Obama's campaign. I had written a book called What's Race Got to Do with It? And talked about this relationship with Obama and his priest, and I figured if it came out in time, that Obama would be finished. The book came out. Still nobody was talking about this. Finally, they were talking about it. And this group of people and journalists were concerned that this candidate that they love may go supernova if something doesn't happen. And so several of these journalists, I'm not making this up, said, let's find some conservative and accuse him of racism. It can be anybody. How about Karl Rove? How about Fred Barnes? Let's find somebody and change the subject by accusing him of racism. Now, I'm not saying that Brian Williams' defenders went out and tried to find somebody like Bill O'Reilly who was on the right to